and a new devlog without having to wait weeks, if not months. Quick reminder, the portfolio is already live and you can test it on brunosimon.com. All I'm doing now is finishing the devlog series. This episode is a little bit more focused than the previous one, and we're going to talk about two main topics, the intro and the achievements. Right now, the experience starts as soon as everything is loaded, and I needed an intro for three main reasons: loading, buffering, and the sound, which I will explain as we go. Let's start with the loading. Even though I was going to optimize the asset as best as I can, there are many models, many textures, a lot of JS, and also some WebAssembly because of Rapier and the decoders. And I'm not even talking about the upcoming sounds. I was expecting the portfolio to weight up to 20 MB. In case the user has a really bad bandwidth or the server is being slowed down by the billions of visitors I will get on release day, spoiler alert, I didn't get a billion visitors, the user needs to have something to look at and know when the experience is going to start. So I went for a circular bar on a grid floor. The cool part is that I display those as soon as three.js is ready to render. The grid is from an experiment I did a while back, and I can compose the lines I want, change their size, thickness, and color. I thought it was a nice idea because it reminds of a modern blueprint on which something is going to be built. For the progress bar, I used a ring geometry and a custom shader to discard portions of it. Obviously, I made it emissive and the color changes according to the time of the day for a reason you will see shortly. If you're familiar with 3D experiences, especially for the web, you might have noticed slight freezes when models appear on screen for the first time. This is because of the buffering. To put it in a nutshell, the CPU sends data to the GPU and it takes time. Even though you tell three.js that there is a mesh with a geometry, a material, and some textures, three.js won't buffer anything until this mesh is being rendered for the first time, thanks to the frustum culling. Normally, it's a good thing, since it avoids overloading the memory needlessly. But buffering can result in a slight freeze, which can spoil the experience, especially in this case where you have a car moving smoothly and linearly. And since I shouldn't have too much to buffer, how about I do it while it's loading? Which I did at this exact moment, when everything is loaded, but nothing is moving. I created the whole world with areas, scenery, etc. The user can't see it, but it's there. And I use a trick I found in React 3 tray, which consists on using a cube camera to render everything from every angle. Note that I traverse the scene looking for invisible meshes or groups, force them to be visible, and put their visibility back to false at the end. It worked, but the initial freeze was crazy long when running WebGL backend, so I deactivated this pre-rendering if the user doesn't support WebGPU. At this stage, I don't have sound, but let's take the intro as an opportunity to handle this matter. Here's the thing with the current state of the web. In most cases, you can't play sound unless the user has interacted with the page, or if the user has a good media engagement, which happens when he goes on your website and plays sounds or video regularly. Since I can't really count on a good media engagement, I needed the user to interact with the page. Fortunately, it can be a mouse click, but also a key being pressed. All I needed was to prompt the user to do so. But if I want the user to click, I have to make him want to. And what could be better than a little preview of the upcoming experience? I collapsed the circular loader and revealed a small part, including the car and a little bit of scenery around it. And that's why the loader color changes according to the time of the day. The cool part is that it works with the weather too, like the rain and the snow. I added a label prompting the user to click on the little scenery, but he can also accelerate since it implies pressing a key. And I added a sound icon so that the user can decide if he wants sound or not when the experience starts, which he can change later, obviously. I also added drag and drop to make the whole thing even more interactive. Once we click, the reveal does an elastic motion and expands far enough and boom, it's done. Final addition, if I add skip in the URL hash, the whole animation skips so that I don't have to wait and click every time. Remember when I said in a previous devlog that some people were having fun speedrunning my old portfolio? Their goal was to make it through the jump as fast as possible, and I thought it was really funny. But I also wanted to make it even more challenging with game-like features. So I added achievements. More than a fun feature, it was the opportunity to provide hints on what to do in the portfolio. I really wanted to have everything in-game with minimal UI, but couldn't find a good way to provide this much info directly in the 3D world. So I used Figma and created a modal with the list of achievements. That's the part where I miss not using a front framework. Having the UI react to whatever data I have without having to manually update everything would have saved me a lot of time. But hey, I can't have everything. Next, I started working on the actual list of achievements, and I was so inspired. I made achievements related to cookies, to the circuit, to the debug UI, to the various areas, some secret, some very long and hard ones, and the list kept growing. And to motivate the user, I also created skins as a reward for completing more and more achievements. An orange-ish version, a white one, a black one, my favorite, a flames one, and the final one, coolest of all, that I won't reveal here. If you hover the reward, you can see how many achievements you must complete to unlock it. At the very bottom of the list, I added a button to reset the progress. And to avoid accidental clicks, I made absolutely sure that the user wants to reset by asking him to click again on the button. And again. Finally, I needed an area to go with it. I went for a style I wanted to implement for a while with kind of old antique ruins, but with magic effects and a waterfall. So I created the building inspired by Greek temples. I added some moss using the forgotten meta ball in Blender. Yeah, we don't see this one very often. The moss is really simple and low poly because I can't afford too many vertices. But I think it does the trick, and its smoothness creates a nice contrast with the building angle. In the middle, I added a monolith, floating up and down using a simple sine wave. For the water, it's all a shader trick. I unwrapped the geometry so that I could use the UV coordinates to draw a nice bluish gradient. For the foam, I use the Voronoi texture I create at the beginning of the experience. Yes, it's the same Voronoi I use for the water splashes. And animated it with time. I did a second version with different frequencies and timings, and combined it with the first one. Finally, I used the combined Voronoi with a step to mix between the blue gradient and the white. I added some particles there because it looks great and a little bit to hide the ugly seam. And finally, I added some glyphs floating around the monolith where each one represents an achievement, and completing it changes its color to blue. For the actual shapes of the glyphs, I tried to find some fun references. I tried Hurricane glyphs, Doom glyphs, and even Warhammer glyphs, but it wasn't looking great. I then found this font, Primitiva, on dafont.com. It's inspired by kanjis, doesn't mean anything, has a nice mix between angles and curves, and looks good even when small. So I created an atlas texture of those glyphs and used the instance index to pick the color on that texture. And to control which one are red and blue, I sent a ratio uniform going from 0 when no achievement is complete to 1 when all achievements are complete. And with a little bit of math, I converted this ratio to have 0 or 1 according to the instance index, and use this value to mix between red or blue. A few lily pads later, and I was done. Not going to lie, this area is my favorite, and I wanted to redo all the previous ones in the same style, but I had a deadline, it was time to move on. When completing an achievement, I popped some confetti around the player, but I needed a way to explain to the user what is going on and what achievement he just completed. So I added notifications at the top of the screen. It's made with classic HTML and CSS. There is a title, a description, the achievement progress, and a progress bar. If we hover the notification, the progress stops so that we can read the text. When we click on it, the notification hides and the achievements modal shows up. If multiple achievements are completed while a notification is visible, it goes into pending and will show up when the current notification is gone. And I also use those notifications to display whenever the server disconnects or reconnects. And we are done for today. Quite a small one compared to the previous episode, but I have more stuff coming in hot. If you enjoyed the devlog, please subscribe and leave a like. Follow me on X or Blue Sky for more creative and coding stuff. Don't forget that the portfolio is already live on brunosimon.com. And let me know what you think of the ultimate skin. See you in the next episode.